Hello everybody and welcome back to Dr. Kashey's Processed Food Educational Series. And in this video we are going to be discussing organic food, the environment, mass manufactured products. Can organic food and natural food be mass produced? We're going to find out right now. But first, I have to remind everybody that now more than ever I feel like we're reminded that the earth is a real place. As if before it wasn't. I know that sounds weird when I say that. We're frequently reminded that taking our planet for granted is a bad idea. Over-farming depletes the soil. Overfishing depletes oceanic biological diversity. Land that could be farmed might be used to build golf courses or baseball fields or parking lots. Forests are being destroyed to grow stuff that doesn't really matter. K-cups and Starbucks straws are constipating our streams and polluting waterways. Plain and simple, food is destroying the earth. And this is at odds with everything else, since food is required to keep humans running and sustaining a population that continues to grow, both in weight and in number. In the next 50 years, I'm willing to bet that the population will grow by 30 to 50%. And those people will be even fatter than current people. So there will be more people that will be bigger and want more food. We will be fine. Currently, it is our children and grandchildren that are going to get boned. So what is a good actionable step here? Now, there's no small number of people arguing that organic food is an answer to something like this, or at the least part of the solution, and it is supposedly chemical-free, sustainable, and healthier, which perhaps I have a feeling everybody knows in the back of their heads it won't amount to much even if we all do swap to organic food. And I agree, organic farming does decrease runoff of synthetic fertilizers if you consider that a bad thing. However, the amount of food that comes out of organic farming with natural fertilizer is decreased, and this means that it takes even more of everything when we may not have it to produce the same amount of food using other farming methods. So everything is a trade-off, you know? So if it's better for the environment, but you have to do twice as much of it, is it really better? It's something to consider here. Now, I do think it's possible to increase crop yields using new, more efficient farming methods, possibly incorporating genetically engineered foods that require less or no pesticides, less fertilizer, less herbicides, less water, right? They're drought tolerant, heat tolerant, etc. And like many instances, the best of all methods, I think, is the ideal path, right? Straight shooter, right in the center. What a lot of people don't know is that organic farming methods still allow for pesticides and herbicides. And for that reason, being chemical-free is a matter of education. When people don't know what a chemical is, it's easy to scare people away with it. And as for the nutritional health side, there's really no convincing data that supports organically farmed food as having a meaningful impact on public health in comparison to conventional farming. So health doesn't matter when there's no environment to live in anyway. So keep that in mind. I know we talk a lot about fruits and vegetables, so I want to use milk as our next example here. Milk is gathered from cows and stored on the farm. A milk truck comes by to pick it up. A sample of that milk is reserved for safety testing. Dorks in white coats, they'll test this milk sample for antibiotics, hormones, pesticides, other toxicants. And if the level of any toxicant exceeds what is allowed, then the entire supply of milk is destroyed. And even crazier, I'm pretty sure resellers will still charge the farm for the milk they could have sold but couldn't because health standards weren't met. The milk, which is still considered raw, is processed through centrifugation, however you'd like to, I'm a scientist and I still can't say that word right, centrifugation. And this means that it's spun down really fast to separate the fat from the rest of the milk. The fat is then added back to the milk to create 1, 2, and 4%. The milk is then pasteurized, which is just kind of like the Tabata version of cooking, to kill germs but preserve flavor. And at this point, the milk is no longer considered raw. The heated milk is then homogenized, which is like it's mixed together really, really fast and hard to mix the fat back in and keep it from separating back out. And then a lot of milk has vitamins added back, specifically or especially vitamins A and D, and then the milk is then shipped off and sold. Okay, fun fact here, the process is the same for organic milk and conventional milk. Why? Because scary sounding chemicals are still used to produce organic milk. And certified organically made products have stricter safety measures than conventional products, but maybe not for the reasons you think. Because there are far fewer organic food producers, this means the chances of getting locally produced organic food is slim, unless you live like right there, okay? By default, this means the food is going to be sitting around much longer before it is sold and consumed because of the extra time required to transport the food a longer distance. And since there's a longer delay between food production and consumption, you must account for that extra time. And ironically enough, organic milk is going to last longer relative to its production date before it spoils, which I think is actually pretty interesting. Now there's a catch-22 here. Most people like the idea of organic food because it appears fresher. Right? That is the optics, that is the perspective. However, it actually looks bad from a consumer standpoint if you have an organic food with a really far out expiration date. It confuses people because that's not how they view organics. All right? And it's also interesting because these extra safety precautions for a lot of ultra pasteurized organic milk doesn't even need to be put in the fridge. And from a food consumer standpoint, that also looks very bad to have a container of milk not in the fridge with a very far out expiration date that also has organic on the label. It really confuses people and people don't buy it. And Americans don't really buy boxed milk on the shelf, but it's a common occurrence outside of the United States. I've got personal experience there. Now, organic food producers get around this conundrum by having specialized packaging and putting the food in the fridge, even if it doesn't have to be refrigerated, and having an artificially shortened expiration date to give the consumer the impression that the food is going to spoil faster than it actually is, which is crazy. People won't buy it unless there's an interesting container with a fancy seal of approval on the label, and of course, in the refrigerated section, with an expiration date that's relatively short. And that's what gives people the impression that it's a fresh, raw, organic, whatever type of food. And this inflates the cost of selling the product on top of charging a premium to make up for those extra costs and get the seal of approval. So chances are, not chances are, manufacturers and distributors and resellers are actually throwing away perfectly good organic food because it's past an expiration date that actually is a complete lie. And if anything is extra, it's that, okay? Right now, to the regular consumer, I feel like the term organic is one of the ways to determine whether or not a food is environmentally friendly and or nutritious. A lot of people seem to think organic food is better for you. And sure, organic food manufacturers use pesticides and fertilizers that are considered natural, but honestly, from a biochemistry standpoint, I don't think natural chemicals, chalcocyanide, zinc phosphide, and pyrethrins are any safer than synthetic ones when compared to the stringent cutoff points required for a food to be considered safe to consume. Now, I legitimately feel like the safety and the nutrition conversations need to end, okay? I'm not really convinced of any meaningful differences between organic and conventional foods in either of those areas. And to that end, I feel like an environmental impact is something that does need to be discussed. For instance, I would argue that a lot of organic farming methods are better for the environment, okay? However, these methods are not sustainable methods and will not support a continuously growing population. Crazy, right? You just generate enough food fast enough. When thinking in those terms, it quickly becomes a bioethical conversation, far out of the scope of nutrition and safety. See, there's always a trade-off. If you have to 4x the amount of farming with environmentally friendly methods, that might actually be worse for the environment and still not support a growing population. And so, sure, it's easy to ban plastic straws, but you're ignoring the huge elephant in the room. It takes way more energy to make food. Not only that, if that food is ever wasted, the energy, water, transport, processing, testing, distribution, all that stuff needs to be taken into account when it comes to calculating the real cost of the environmental impact of wasting food. Think about all the steps I just described to make milk. It's easy to think that, okay, man, wasting a gallon of milk sucks, right? It goes bad, you pour it down the drain. But when you think about what it really takes to get that milk, like feeding a baby cow, growing it up, milking it, going through that whole process of getting it to the store, to the fridge, and then and then I have to pour it down the drain. It makes me really upset sometimes. And it just tells a totally different story. Right? Conventional farming strategies and improved food processing techniques are required to have a sustainable supply of food. The problem that needs solving is how to combine the best of both worlds so that there could be enough food for everyone and still keep the environment intact. Everything is a trade-off. Everything. And right now, sustainability and to some extent organic foods are kind of a fad. All right, unfortunately, they're a fad. There are some benefits, but right now, since the nutritional and the health impacts are kind of moot, I think bringing environmental sustainability into the equation is important. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Kind of a serious video, but it's something that I think everybody should be concerned about.